Hey, 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 it's Rebecca, and you are listening to Resilient by Design. Today, I get to interview a really awesome local designer, Karin Bennett of Karin Bennett Designs. You probably know her from her work with the Property Brothers, but she is a lovely local designer here, and she is growing a very strong team. She talks about all things business. Like, we really talk about it all. She talks about money. She shares what her minimum is for projects. She talks about how to fire a client. Hello. So many of you have asked me, like, what do you do when the client's not the right fit? She has done this and talks in detail about her experience. I think you guys are really going to like it. It's one of those talks that just feels supernatural, talking to another business owner. She's also a mom. And unfortunately, we ran out of time to talk about the mom stuff. This is really like nitty gritty business stuff and what she's doing that's really working for her. So I hope you guys enjoy. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Are you as tired as I am working in a bubble? I mean, shoot. It's time to maybe socially distance with other people. That is why I love coming to the Collective Workspace. If you are someone who is looking for a little bit of stimulation, a lot of beauty, the Collective Workspace is a really great place to go. It is a co-working space for designers, architects, and builders in Toronto, and they're opening a second location this spring. They have flex workspace and offices starting at $120 a month. There's boardrooms, a podcast booth, which is where I am right now, concierge storage, and a trade-only design library. You can find out more, or if you want to book a tour, go to thecollectiveto.com. Hey, Karin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you. I mean, we've been following each other's journey for a while now, several years. And I've been trying to get you on the podcast and I finally got you. So I'm really excited. I know the designers are going to love listening to your story, your wisdom, your thoughts. I think you're a really great business owner and I want to talk about your business journey and your thoughts. But before we even dive into that, can you just give us a little synopsis of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I am the principal designer of Karin Bennett Designs. I opened the doors to our firm probably 8 years ago now. Previously to that, I was actually a massage therapist. I worked in a medical clinic.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So for like 12 or 13 years. And then I basically followed my passion. So I've been running KBD for the last 8 years and just kind of doing my thing, learning, failing, picking myself up, that sort of thing. And I'm a mom of 3. So I've been married for, it'll be 20 years this year. And
I'm sorry. How is that even possible? You're so young. How could you have been, did you get married really? Like, were you a baby when you got married?
I did get married young actually, but, I got married at 24 and I'm 44. So not that young, but kind of young in today's standard.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I have like a son going to university, which is crazy. And then I have twins that are going into grade 11. So we got married, had 3 kids in like 2 years and that's it.
Wow. It's awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we can definitely touch on that too, because growing a business while being a parent is not exactly always easy. I know I have 2 little kids, you have 3, and you're like way ahead of me on the parenting game. So I'm super curious to hear your experience. I would love to learn a little bit more about, you started your business. Did you start, because you worked in television, and I think that's how we connected in some way, right? Like you had worked.
I think so.
So around the same time that like I had worked on Property Brothers before I had my first.
Yeah.
And then I think you had also worked on Property Brothers maybe. And we were like, I don't even remember anymore. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. I think I started maybe 5 years ago. So when did you finish?
Okay. So I started working in TV. I mean, I haven't done it as much as you have, about 7 years ago, seven and a half
Okay.
years ago. And then I stopped when did I stop? When I got, I don't know, when I had Sarah. So
Okay.
probably 4 or 5 years ago. So I think I probably stopped about the same time that you started.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, and as you know, I said, so is Melanie, how is she related to you?
so Melanie Hay is my cousin. She's married to my first cousin, Andrew.
Okay. Yes. So then I worked on Property Brothers a little bit with Melanie. So then there's another connection.
Yeah. And did you ever work with Jean Ross?
Yeah. I love Jean.
Yeah. So there's all these little TV connections. It's a small
Yes.
world, actually,
Yeah,
once you start working in television, at least in Toronto.
for sure.
For sure. So I think it's interesting because when I think of you, and maybe that's just because that was when I first encountered you, is like, oh, she's working for Property Brothers. I had worked for them. Like, how much did your experience working in television shape your career?
I think it did really well for me to propel me into people being interested in myself. So, like, I always think like there's just so much luck involved in success. And of course, there's hard work, but it's a lot of it's timing. So, for me, if I started 5, maybe 6 years ago, I was surprised I even got the job in the first place. They found me somehow. I got an email, hey, we're looking to hire Toronto Property Brothers designer. And I was like, wow, like I can't believe they found me. I didn't even really know anything about TV. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go for it. Like I always believe, even if you don't know if it's a good fit, just kind of follow the process, see what happens. You can always decide. And I was 100% sure I wasn't going to get it. So, you first do like some email interviews and then you send your resume and then you went for an interview and all this stuff. And then I got the job and I was so surprised. So that's what kind of started. And I think it really helped me for two reasons. Number one, it was when like I had started my Instagram account and was trying to do better on social media. And people really like the fact that you're working on a hit TV show. Property Brothers is huge. And people enjoy that. So I think they were interested in me, which helped me like social media and get more like eyes on KBD. And then it helped because, as you know, TV design is a fast moving machine and you need to jump on and jump on hard and work your butt off.
That is like the understatement of the year.
I know.
I've never been on a train so fast.
And it's unforgiving in a way. Like the brothers are amazing and the whole like production team and everything are amazing, but you have to keep going. And if something happens, then it's corrected right away. And same with the construction who does it. So it's like, it was really intense and it really forced me to just work really hard and to like, do interesting designs and all that sort of stuff. So I think for two reasons, the whole Brothers thing really helped me for like the social media, getting eyes on me, and then just like kicking my butt into shape.
Yeah. I think especially like is that right around when you started your business?
No, I probably started like 3 years before that, I would say. But it was just like, decorating some rooms and doing this. And I didn't have any other designers on my team. So, and I'd done some renovations, but I hadn't really been in charge of the construction process. So, you have to really like dig in and learn fast. And I didn't go to formal schooling. So again, like when I got the job, I was like, wow. I remember forwarding the stuff, like everything we had to do to one of my designers, like one of my friend designers who had graduated a couple of years before. And I'm like, can I do this? And she's like, yeah. You can do it. You can do it. Just do it. And I'll help you. And anyways,
Awesome.
It was good.
It's kind of like trial by fire, like just throw you in the deep end and you either sink or you swim, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. So would you say that after, I mean, I know but do you still work in television?
So I've done a few of the Property Brothers shows. Last year was COVID. So there was nothing happening. The December before that, we finished wrapping up Forever Home. So I did do that. I had kind of said like I wasn't going to do it unless I was going to be on the show, not just designing behind the scenes, because as you said, it's so much work. So on that season, we were able to be on the show. So I felt like I got a little bit more recognition maybe. So that was good. So I'm still doing it, but I would say like if I'm maybe not on the show, physically on the show a little bit, I don't think I'll do it because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, totally. Would you say that are there any takeaways that you have implemented in your own business that you learned from working in television? Or are there any takeaways that you're like, I'm not going to do that? I mean, obviously the real world does not move as fast, so that factors in. But is there anything that you would say you've taken into your business?
I would say one of the important things is because it's such a fast moving machine, you can't be so particular on every item that you're selecting when designing a room. So my takeaway would be just because you can't find the perfect coffee table, whether it's not in budget or you don't have the time to source all the ones, you have to keep rolling. So that would be like putting my business hat on and like taking my like critical designer hat off and being like, it's at the end of the day, you have to put this beautiful room together, but you have to do all these other things. So the takeaway for me is like, don't get hung up on the coffee table or the piece of art or whatever. Like it's all going to come together. And at the end of the day, design is subjective. So even if I wasn't superbly happy with that coffee table, no one else is really noticing. So you just have to keep moving.
Oh, so true. It's such a good lesson, I think, when you're a designer, because I think a lot of us as designers, I went to design school and you come out and it's all about perfection and putting together that perfect vignette. And you do tend to, when you're starting out, obsess over the perfect chair and like, well, doesn't exactly have the lines that I was envisioning. Let's keep looking, right?
Yeah.
TV does not afford you that time. But even in the real world, you have, like you said, you have to learn that sometimes you have to focus on just the client, the timelines, and the fact that it's a business. I had situations where, junior designers working for me in the past, took it really personally if the client didn't like, I don't know, one element in the design, because like for us, that was like everything. And I've tried to encourage my team to understand that it's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's still beautiful. It's very subjective. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But just because we think that there has to be this drapery fabric, if you change it, it'll still look great and the client's going to be happy. And ultimately it's their home and not to be too precious about it. I think as creatives, we tend to get take it very personal.
Yeah.
Like it's like a personal affront if someone doesn't like the chair, if we can't find the coffee table. And so we find a substitute and it always bugs us. When you have those projects and you look back, you're like, oh, I'm still so frustrated. I'm still annoyed that I had to use that coffee table.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Absolutely.
And I think that's because you are different than the typical creative because you wear your business hat a lot. And I want to talk about that because I feel that I'm somewhat the same way. It's funny for me, starting out in design was because I wanted to be creative. I always wanted to run my own business though. So I think I had that. I just didn't realize that entrepreneurial side was there.
Yeah.
And then once I started doing the design, it was really, really great. But then I realized that my passion for running and growing the business actually far outweighed my passion for design. Doesn't mean I'm not passionate about design, but I didn't realize that I would become so obsessed with business. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're kind of similar in that sense.
I'm very similar. So same sort of thing. I went into interior design because I love doing it. It was truly my passion. There was nothing else I could think of that I wanted to do. So this is my second career. Like I said, I was a massage therapist and my body was getting a little tired. So I thought, what am I going to do? And I had asked friends and family and everyone's like, well, I think you just got to do like interior design because that's what you love and that's what you're good at. So it was like a slow climb to get there. But though I actually did own my own business before, it was totally different. So I really just want to do the interior design. And then what happens as an entrepreneur? You fail and you fail and you fail and you fail. And you have to like pull up your socks and learn and move on, and you're crushed and you feel awful and you feel like you're this big, but then you learn. So early on, I just kept saying to myself, when I felt this small, let it hurt and don't do it again. So whatever the mistake was, whether it was giving up my control to a client, which can happen, or like a billing thing or anything, like what the millions of mistakes, that I just like, let it hurt, let it burn, and don't do it. So like, I feel that my business over the last 8 years has been try something, fail, learn, move forward. And that was more business, a lot of times more business than design. Or it could be like I had a trade that wasn't great, or someone kind of screwed me over, or this or that, or whatever it is. And so I find it really interesting now, as you start getting a little more successful, you're like, yeah, of course. And then to me, like as a business owner, your process is everything. Like and you're so great because you now coach people, but like your process is everything. Like if I was starting out, oh my gosh, I would buy every single piece of help from a designer I could, because your process is everything.
Yeah.
And otherwise you're just going to fail and learn the hard way. So you might as well cut to the chase and do it and learn from the beginning.
I failed all the hard ways. Totally.
Yeah.
Like I remember thinking, why is there not a roadmap? Like I even went to design school and I'm like running my business actually when I was working for the other designer, and I saw how chaotic things were and that there wasn't a set system or a process. I remember thinking there's got to be a better way. But then there weren't. I mean, I guess there was business of design and that was it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Process is everything. So did you know that though? Like when you're trial and error, learning from mistakes, and then you say process, like, did you always have a process? Like when you opened your design business, did you know that that was something you needed, or did it develop over time?
No, I didn't know. I just would fail. And I'm like, what went wrong? Like, how did I get here? How did this happen? And then like, I wouldn't have even had the words to say the process. Like I didn't even think that way at all. And then it took probably a few years to be like, okay, like I need to do this. And then like, I need to be strategic in what I'm doing, not kind of fly by the seat of my pants. And I need to be the one in control. So when I have a client, this is my process and that's it. There's no discussion about my process. If it works, great. If it doesn't, fine. But this is the process and this is how we run our business. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And I actually think clients like that. They want to know. And more often than not, they want to jump on board because they trust you. If you don't have a process and it feels like you're flying off the seat of your pants, clients are going to know that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, I look back on my early years and I think, oh my God, I'm embarrassed for like Rebecca 5 years ago. Like I'm legit. I don't even know how those clients are still in my life. Like
I know, they're so gracious.
I mean, somehow it all turned out okay. The space looked good, but I can tell you, I've had clients say to me like, that was a chaotic process. It's so much learning, much learning.
And don't you find that when you have the process and you learn from these mistakes, when it runs smooth, like it's all about running smooth. And like you said, it's rarely about the room turning out because more often than not, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's just the whole process. And I find that as a business owner, I want to know how long it takes for me to design a room. And I want to account for that time. So I do flat fee now. So before I would go hourly, and I really like flat fee because I like a client knowing what to expect and being happy with that. Like to me, it goes so much better. But as a business owner, I need to know how long this is going to take me. Otherwise I'm going to lose. And I don't like to lose.
Yeah. I love that. I don't like to lose. A tough cookie. Okay. Question for you. What do you think is better, to be really talented as a designer, but not have great business savvy, or to have incredible business savvy and just be a mediocre designer? What do you think? I mean, it's not better. That's the wrong question.
Yeah.
What do you think is more successful, I suppose?
Yeah. I see that. It's so funny. I find this so interesting and so intriguing, this whole discussion, because I see so many designers who are so talented, but from what I see, I don't think they're necessarily financially successful. And then I see people who I think are running a really great business and I'm really impressed. And I don't maybe think the designs are completely top notch. So it's so interesting how even that happens in our industry. I think that, I mean, I think, I don't know, if you're 100% just a creative, then maybe the designs are everything. And that's what matters. Like for me, it's a business and I love our clients and I love running KBD. But to me, like I put my business hat on more often than my designer hat. And I think if you want to be successful, I think that's more important, which is so crazy if people who aren't designers are listening to this. But if you are a designer, to me, it's all about knowing how to run your business.
Yeah. And I mean, some people are fortunate to have a partner who can do more of the business side.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then you kind of need to learn it. I agree with you. It's like opening up a magazine and you open it up and there's like some beautiful spaces. And then there's some spaces you're like, really? Like the house that I just did is way nicer than this. How did it get in the magazine? Because they have like a publicist or really business savvy and they're, they're pitching and or whatever it might be. And so it's important to understand that. I also say this all the time to designers. I say, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't actually matter how good your designs are if nobody knows that you exist.
Yes.
Right? It's like you see someone's work. I've had designers call me who are like, can you just help me price out a job? And I'm like, why are you calling me? Like your designs are way better than my designs. And then I hear what they're going to charge. I'm like, holy girl.
Yeah.
How are you only charging that? You are worth so much more money.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's just understanding our worth and having that business savvy.
Yes, 100%. I love talking about money with my clients. I love talking about money with the contractors. I love talking about money and with other interior designers. I love talking about money because I find that if we're not transparent with each other as business owners and as designers, it actually doesn't do us any good. First of all, I want everyone to succeed. Like, honestly, I want everyone to run a great business and to make what they're worth. And almost always it's not the case. And if we don't talk about it, then like, I just feel like you're going to learn from being transparent. I don't know. I never think that you're showing too many of your cards. I just don't. I think that there should be like an understanding in the industry. And then when you have that one interior designer who's actually really good and charging really little, it kind of undermines everybody else too.
Totally. So how do you charge, Ms. Transparent? Like, how do you?
Yeah. So
is your flat fee for everything or is your flat fee just for design and then a separate project management? Like, how do you structure your fees?
Yeah. So this is all, again, trial and error. Plus I love Kimberly Seldon and Business of Design, all that stuff. So it's also that. And then it's talking to, I have lots of really good friends in the interior design industry. So talking to them. So I do flat fee now. It's just a flat fee for the whole project. I base it on an hourly rate. And I know how long things take me. So I'm actually really good. I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm really good at calculating the time it takes me. So I have 3 designers that work with me and myself. So we all know what our hours are on each project. We might have 5 or 6 projects going at the same time, but at the end of each project, I know how long everything takes us. And I also know how long each process takes us. And then I go back to the price I quoted and see if I did well each time. And
so the next time, you know how to accurately charge.
That's right. Yeah. So like, just for instance, just 2 jobs that I quoted on about a month ago. People are funny when you quote a job. They never just email you to say you didn't get the job. You just don't hear from them again.
Totally. Yes. Thank you. It's not just me. I'm like, they just ghost you. It's not like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, they just ghost you.
The time, like we've decided to go the route. That's fine. I won't take it personally, but don't disappear.
Never. No. Yeah. So 2 I quoted, it was both were big projects. My number was high and I didn't hear from them. And you know what? I'm okay. I'm totally okay with it. Do I wish I got the jobs? Totally. But I don't know who they went with. It doesn't even matter. But I stick by my price because I'm not going to lose. I know what my profit margin I want it to be. I know how long things take. So if someone's hourly rate, if they're basing their quote on a lesser hourly rate, well, I stand by my hourly rate. I know when my value is there, and I know how long things take. Because I do it on every single project. I'm very clear on how long things take.
I think that's a really great point, because it's not something that I'm good at. I do not like talking about money.
I don't like talking about money.
Do not like talking about money, but I see the value of flat rate. So we do flat rate too, because then I get talking about money over with at the beginning. So for me, it works because I have the awkward conversation, and then I no longer am having this back and forth where I have to justify my hours, where I'm chasing a client for money, like we collect our fees up front. So that has helped me, because I know a lot of designers listening are probably like, well, good for Karin, because she likes to talk about money. But most designers, I would say, do not feel comfortable talking about money. I don't know what it is. It might be a female thing, it might be a creative thing, but that's been my experience talking to designers.
Now, don't get me wrong. When I didn't do flat fee and I was sending out my monthly invoices, and if there was questions on it, which every client has a right to question, I would get very offended. I would try not to be offended in my email or a conversation, but deep down, I'd be like, do you know I don't actually charge for all this time? Like, there's not one project where I've ever actually charged for all of my minutes, like not one. So I found it so offensive. And my husband would always say to me, like, you shouldn't be offended. Like, people are allowed to ask the time and so on and so forth. So yeah, like, it's not that I would be offended when the client would ask me, but I like talking about the money up front. And like you, so I base my fees on flat fee, and I collect 50% up front as a retainer. So I may not even get to your project for 1, 2, 3, 4 months. I collect 50% right away just to get into the schedule. And then after the design presentation, I collect 40%. So I have 90% of my money when probably only 50% of the work is done, because we all know that the first part of the first half of the project is always the most fun. And then that like last half, other than that last day is fun, that last half is hard. So I collect a lot of that money up front. And the reason I do that, and I believe this is a good strategic reason, is because in the beginning of a project, clients like to give you their money.
They're excited.
And at the end, they don't, because everyone always overspends what they initially budgeted for. So I find that if I only have to collect 10% in the end, people are so much happier.
So when do you collect that 10%?
So I actually don't like to collect it when the project is done, because I don't feel comfortable someone owing me money. So I collect it at like the furniture delivery. So the major furniture delivery, and I call it major furniture delivery because now with COVID, sometimes we have 2, 3 deliveries, not just like one perfect delivery wrapped up in a bow.
Doesn't that just suck? We're doing that right now. And it's like a complete reminder of why I don't do this. Like, we had the drapery installed and other clients like, well, that Roman, like, it feels really like, you think it's too wide? I'm like, no, the lighting hasn't arrived yet. Wait till the light comes. Like, it's going to look amazing. I'm like, oh my God, this used to be my life, where I had to like justify everything that was getting installed because they couldn't see the picture.
Yes.
Damn you, COVID. Yes.
I know. It's all like kind of bits and pieces. So at the major furniture delivery is when I collect the last 10%. So while if a client said to me, I really don't feel comfortable giving this 10%, like I probably would hold off, but no one's ever said that. Like, I feel like trust is there, and so I always collect that 10%. And then usually there's still like a couple of weeks of the job to do, and we finish up and it's all good. So I know I'm never, ever gonna screw someone over. Sorry, I don't know a better term for that, but like, I know I'm never gonna take more than my share, but I always worry as a business owner that someone's just gonna like walk away with the last 10%.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I've seen clients do that to contractors, actually.
For sure.
Really sad.
Yeah. The other thing I do, and a lot of people don't do this, which again, I've actually always done this, and I'm surprised that more people don't do it, is I collect 100% of all orders up front.
I'm just getting my water. I'm still here. Tell us about that, because I've been debating that. I collect 75%. because it definitely more than covers the deposits I make. But tell us about the 100%. Do you get pushback?
So I also should say that I pay 100% also. So if it's a new supplier, I will pay them 50% because I'm always a little bit worried some shop might close down. But if these are vendors and like people that I've been working with for years and years and years, and they've been in the industry for 10, 20, 30 years, then I feel confident. I actually pay them 100% upfront because my accounting bill is giant every month because there's so much back and forth that I just find it easier to collect all of it and pay all of it. So I actually pay the full thing as well.
Wow. Even if they only want, like, say it's a custom sofa and you only need to give them a 50% deposit, you're like, no, I want to pay you in full.
Yes.
Wow. That I've never once heard of a designer doing that.
I know. I don't, it could be wrong, but it works for me. It works for my accounting. It works. So clients will sometimes say, why am I paying 100%? And I just say, because we pay 100% up front. And the reason I pay 100% up front from the client is because to me, we're always asking for money. Like you have 10 projects and you know, there's the design fees, there's the furniture, there's the drapery, there's plumbing fixtures, there's like all this stuff you're collecting for, that if I can collect it once instead of twice, it's half the work. And I feel that the amount you're asking for matters sometimes less than the amount of times you're bugging somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find it easier and everyone pays it. And then it goes back to my thing of people are happy to pay in the beginning and they don't want to let go of their money as much in the end. So like I said, so essentially they're paying all their furniture, all their lighting, everything 100% front. They paid 90% for me, design fees by the time the presentation is over. So really the majority of the time of their project, they actually are only paying 10%.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
They leave feeling like they're paying a lot in upfront, but they leave not feeling like gutted that we're like raping them of all this money.
Yeah. And then, so you calculate your fee based on the hours you think it's going to take your team based on past experiences, right?
Yes.
Are you involved in like the implementation, the project management side? Like how involved are you? Are you on site every week? Like what's your
So I'm like the main person who does the designs. So basically I'm the person in the beginning of the project. I do the consultations. One of my other designers, Elisa, also does consultations, but I'm usually the person that does the consultations. On average, I do 2 a week. So I take one day and I do consultations, and that's how I get into client homes. And my consultation fee is not inexpensive. And the reason that is because I feel that if you don't want to invest in that, then we're not your people, and that's okay. So, if you want a price shop, then great. We're just not going to be your people. And it's never going to turn into a project if our consultation fee scares you off.
Yeah. So how much do you charge for a consultation?
So we charge $6.95 or $7.95 for 2 hours. So I feel like those have been my prices for quite a while. I could maybe put those up, but I'd say they've been my prices for like 5 years. So the $7.95 is just if I'm going a little bit farther and people still want me to come. I don't tell people you're paying more. I just send the $7.95 PDF once I know where they live. But so basically we get into people's homes and then we quote a job. So I actually quote the job. I determine scope of work with the client, quote the job. I'm actually going to not keep doing that. And one of my designers is going to do that.
Nice. My goal too. I've created a whole like Excel formula on how to do it. So my goal is, because I'm the bottleneck, I have to go home, enter in the information, and then my team's waiting on me like, hey, what are we charging? So I can send the proposal. And I'm like, shoot, I'm out somewhere else and I didn't get a chance to do it. I love that. Tell me how you're going to do it, because I'm like on the brink of doing that.
Yeah. So basically, again, our admin coordinator is going to do that. Lisa, she's amazing. So she just has a breakdown of how long a room takes. So like, I know how long a room takes. I have a varying range, and then we just multiply it by our hourly rate. But that is a nuanced approach, because if I think in the beginning, the client is going to be difficult, I will compensate for that. Or if the job is amazing and it's like a new build and everything's gorgeous and I want to get photos and they were so great, then I might nuance it the other way. So like there's definitely like I will always go over it with Lisa before she sends it off. The other thing, Rebecca, I'll say is I think when I'm determining the price, the fee all the time, sometimes I undercut myself. Whereas I like someone to hold me accountable and be like, no, like it has to be this because ABC.
You know what? I have to agree with you 100%. And I hope designers who are listening, this is a big takeaway. When I had an operations manager join my team a few years ago, and I don't remember if I was calculating a design fee or a markup or something. And she was like, just let me do this. You're not charging enough money.
Yep.
How can you run your business with this small profit margin? And I was like, well, and like, they're so nice. And like, I don't think it's going to be that hard. And like, da, 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 da. And so she just started doing it without me seeing. And she was like marking the products up what she thought was worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they paid that? Oh my God, how much we marked it up? And it was like so much better to remove me from
the emotion. Yeah.
I have the emotion. I've met the person. I want everyone to like me. Like I want to make sure everything's copacetic. And she's just doing for her, it's just numbers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think what's really wonderful about having an admin coordinator or an assistant, or you make up an email address from like Frank at Rebecca Hay Designs, and he does your accounting if you're a solo and just starting. I never did this, but I know designers who have done this, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It gives you a separation when it comes to the money with the client.
Yeah.
Then you get to be the hero. So if the client is like really unhappy about something and the admin can't sort it out, then you can come in and you can decide how you want to take it. When you're like the front line of defense, there's like no one backing you up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like the way you put that. Exactly.
Totally. Okay. So that's really great. That does often involve some finesse because no two projects are the same, like you say.
Sure.
Right? You might be doing a new build with this one person in Burlington and a new build in Oakville, and they're similar square footage, but like one client seems to be like so easy peasy, like we just want you to pick it. And the other client's like, I have these really specific ideas about how I want the fireplace. And I'm thinking, and you're like, oh my God, you're going to be more work. Sometimes you have to make that call, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So I feel that that's a good job. As a business owner, I think there are good jobs that we can give off to people. And I always joke that like, as a business owner, I'm like good at, or like a designer, I'm good at like 3 or 4 things. And then everything else someone supports me on. And I think a huge takeaway is to be a business owner of any business. You don't have to be good at everything, and you just do what you like and what you're good at. Because do both. But if you don't like it or good at it, then don't do it at all. Right. So like you have to like it and be good at it. It has to come naturally and easily to you, and then hire the rest. So for that, because I've been taking so much time quoting jobs, and like I said, like, I don't know, half the time you don't get them, more than half, maybe. Like I don't even know.
2 consultations a week. When you said that, I was like, I had a heart palpitation. I'm like, that sounds like a nightmare. I'm like, I tell Vera, I'm like, no more than 2 consultations a month.
I know. We do a lot.
I can't, like, I don't want to. And I'm booking, but also like my capacity, maybe you have a greater capacity to take on work. But I only want to have like so many jobs at a certain size. And if we get too many jobs and I can't service them the way I want. I'm also trying to do this podcast, coaching, all the other things too. Yeah. But that like 2 consultations a week makes me like anxious.
But we don't always take those clients on, right? So we always say like, we're happy to come into anybody's home, but we have like a project minimum that we go with. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And so, we don't just take on, like, if I get there and they're like, oh, can you like style my living room and like help me pick out a dining room table? I'm like, oh my gosh, no, like
absolutely not. Do you pre-qualify those people on the telephone, or do you just have them book the consult and you go to their house?
So Lisa, our admin coordinator, like pre-qualifies them. So she lets them know what our project minimum is, because what I don't want to do is go there and they want me to style their living room and find a dining room table. I don't want them, after they invested in the consultation, to be like, no, I'm not taking you on as a client. So we're just very transparent, and this is the consultation fee. This is to get anywhere, with us. Like everyone does that. And a lot of times it doesn't go anywhere and people just need some help, and that's great. And sometimes it does, but we have this project minimum, and that's the way it is.
So what was I going to say? If she tells them the project minimum and they're like, well, we don't have that much money, but we still want Karin to come to our house. So she's like, no problem. And she books you in.
Yeah. And I will do, I also say to people, so so we have a project minimum of $10,000 design fees.
Okay.
That's actually,
So that's just the fee, not the actual total budget for all the things.
for sure. That's just the design fee. But to be honest, I don't, though that's too little for me. Like I probably really am more like at a 25,000 design fee minimum, because a $10,000 design fee minimum is too many projects. Like it's too many projects. We have four of us working here, full-time designers. So it's just too many projects for us. So, but the reason I have 10 and not 25 is because I don't want to negate the people who are starting out, because I know we can help them later. Right. So I don't love the $10,000 ones. And again, that's design fees. But I keep it like that. I prefer obviously like 50 and more, because I'd rather do a bigger project. I prefer 100 and more, but it just depends what the project is. I have had a saying that for like the last 3 years, less projects, bigger projects, less projects, bigger projects. So
yeah. Well, because the thing is, it takes the same, like, for the same amount of money, it's more work to do more projects and more time, right? Even though you're budgeting time and all that, because you got to shift gears, you got to stay on top of like this kitchen and then this main floor, as opposed to all of your thoughts are towards one house. I'm the same way. I mean, when you're starting out, like it's really great to be in that place where you are and where I am. I'm saying no to smaller projects because I want to do the bigger projects. But even when you're starting out, I think it's okay to say like, this is my fee or this is a minimum, because you need to make sure you're getting paid what you're worth and paid for your time. Because I know when for those listeners right now who are pretty new at this game and are thinking, well, that's nice, you guys can charge $10,000.
Sure.
Obviously, like I did not always charge thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm sure you didn't either.
Yeah.
Right. I used to, when I look back at what I charged, I think, oh my God, I was like negative. Like I was a charity. How did I even pay my bills because of the time I put in? Like, and I made $5,000 over like 6 months or something ridiculous like that. Right.
Yeah.
You do have to stand your ground. Okay. Speaking of standing your ground, there's something I want to ask you. What happens when you get a client and it's not working out? Because I think this has happened to you recently based on some Instagram stories, which I love that you share. How do you fire the wrong client?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I 100% believe that you can fire a client.
How do you know?
I think we don't do it enough.
Like, this is my question is like, because speaking for a friend, wink, wink, like, how do you know when it's time? Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh my gosh. It's always too late. First of all, when you do it, it's always too late. So these clients, of course, I knew them beforehand. Every project that has gone sour, which I'm maybe I can think of 3 offhand, but there probably is a couple more. So I'll say 5 in 8 years. It's always been somebody I know.
That makes it so much harder.
Always. Honestly, I don't work for friends. I say like, there's maybe like a handful of people, and if you need me, I'm going to do it for you for free. Like you're my friend, you're my best friend, my mom, my dad, whatever, my aunt, like my sister, right? Like that's it. And I'll help you. We'll get this done, whatever. Don't bug me too much kind of thing. But everyone else, I charge full price. I don't care if you're still a good friend, full price. I don't give anybody deals because it never works out. It never works out. So if people don't value and want to spend the money, then it's just not going to be a good fit. So, sorry to come back. So yes, I believe that you should fire a client 100%. So of course, these clients I knew from years ago, and they were really great until they weren't. I feel like they tricked me. So
you got duped.
I did get duped.
They lured you in with their nice smiley. Oh yeah, we want to spend all the money. We love everything you do.
Yeah.
Just joking,
Yeah. So it was great. They were really good. And then we did the presentation. So this was during COVID. So we sent the presentation to them before and didn't do it in person.
Yeah.
It never works out because if you can't talk, at least we should have, we gave it to them because, again, COVID, you need to have your designs ready well before construction. So everything has to be done. So we were coming to this timeline and we were like, we had to show them the designs, but we couldn't actually like Zoom call or whatever for like till the weekend. Like, so that was my first mistake, is I sent them the designs without following up right away. So they have time to mediate or marinate in these designs, and they worry because as you know, a presentation takes a long time. You talk them through everything, and everything is so specific. And so there's a reason for everything we do when we put it together. You
give them the rationale. Like there's a design rationale. Like we chose the plaid drapes because it ties in with the blue, and they might just see it and be like, plaid drapes? What the heck is she thinking?
For sure. Yeah. So it started with that. And I got this email. I think she was trying to be cheeky and cute, but it was rude. Basically, they didn't like anything. Or I would say they liked 50%. But in our business, 50% is a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I generally, in my contract, I allow for 1 revision per room. So, you know, I'm a little bit soft on that, but generally, right? So if we're designing 10 rooms, you kind of are allowed 10 revisions, not revisions, 1 edit in 1 room.
Oh, that's so interesting. I don't do that. Maybe I just say 1 round.
No, I don't like 1 round.
As long as it doesn't change, like alter the scope of work. Yeah. And typically it's like a handful of things, but I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So one edit per room. So if there's 10 rooms, if 1 room has 3 edits and, you know, as long as it adds up to about 1 per room, otherwise revisions are so much work. Mm-hmm. And the overall design is compromised. So anyways, when they come back and they don't like 50%, like think of 1 room, there's probably 30 things that you've picked in this 1 room. So imagine they don't like half of that times 15 rooms.
Oh my God.
So I wrote an email back that was like very strict in my approach, right? Which then they didn't like.
Had you Zoom at this point or no, not yet?
I know we hadn't. They got back to me within a day that all the things they didn't like. I came back, and I think if I came back super gracious, maybe it would have gone better. I wasn't rude or anything, but I was very strict in my response.
The way we do it. Revisions then is included.
Yeah. And then she was very upset. So then I softened my next email, but stood by it. And she was so offended. So then I said, I think we need to part ways. Like, I think we need to part ways. And then they were so mad that the construction was starting in a month. And I said, like, I'm not leaving you high and dry. I am going to give you everything. And let me tell you, most designers wouldn't do that. They would just say, it's not a good fit. Goodbye. I'm not doing that. I'm literally going to give you everything. I wasn't trying to teach them a lesson. I just didn't want to work with them anymore. So I said, like, I will set you up. I will give you everything. I'm going to give you the details, which I normally even wouldn't give. I'm going to give you all the details so you can hire somebody else or you can move forward on your own. And they were so mad. So I had a call with him and he was very rational. And then we had another call with her the next day and she was so emotional and so mad. And I should have just stood by it.
What a freaking nightmare, Karin.
Yeah.
Were you like having palpitations in the middle of the night? I feel like I would be like anxious all night long, worried about it.
That it's so funny because I work with a construction crew, the same one a lot. And I'm pretty even keeled. Like I'm not super emotional. So we were outside of another job site. I was talking to them on the phone and I didn't even know I looked distressed. And like one of the tradespeople like called the owner of the construction company. They're like, is Karin okay? Like something's going on the front lawn. I've like I was just on a call with them, like trying to defend myself because she was so upset. Like, why are you upset? Like, I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, so I took them back. So again, you know, I should have stuck by it.
Oh, girl.
And it just went downhill. Like we did all the revisions, didn't charge them anything. They were really good at then the presentation meeting, but she was rude the whole time. So then you have 6 months, you have 4 months of construction and then whatever. And then finally at the end of construction, so I didn't leave them high and dry. I was like, the last straw was my parents were over and I read them this email and they're like, that's unacceptable. And I'm like, I know, I need to fire them. Like even though it was the very end of the job, and I fired them. And I just said, like, the way you treat me is unacceptable. So I'm walking away, and I couldn't quite just walk away because there was still like some furniture coming in. So I just said, I will have no more correspondence with you. You will deal with our amazing designer, Amanda, who was kind of the second in that, on that project. And that was it.
So they still paid you in full for the whole thing?
Yep. I got paid. Well, because remember, I collect 50, then 40. Actually, were they hourly? I forget. Anyways. Yeah, I did collect the fees and stuff. So yeah. And then anyway.
Sometimes it's not
awful.
worth the fee, because like I recently had to make a big decision, and I had to not fire, but I turned down what I thought was going to be a credible opportunity and an incredible cash flow for the company. But it was turning out to not be what was promised or what was expected. And the number of hours, the drain on my team, I quickly saw that it was spiraling out of control and that we would probably lose money. And I just this week actually I had to pull the plug. I'm like, I will finish what we've started, but I cannot continue. And it was a business decision, and it was hard. Now, it wasn't emotional. Like, I don't think I probably would have been just the same as you, if not softer in your situation, because like when it's on a personal level and there's like another human being who's like upset by my actions, then I'm upset. And it's like, I'm a very sensitive person. But good for you. I know a lot of designers ask that question. Like, how do you fire a client? Like, how do you tell them that it's not working out? And I think too, once you've collected their money, like, do you refund some of their money? Like, it's such a tricky, the only thing I could say as my bit of advice to like designers listening is pre-qualifying your clients. In your case, like this was a different scenario because it was someone you knew, but now you've learned, like, don't work with people I know, is so important. Like asking the right questions, trusting your freaking gut. Like I've had red flags that I've ignored so many times, and yet the project turned out fine. I mean, it looked great, but the experience for both parties was frustrating and unenjoyable. More time is usually put in than you expect if it's a difficult project or a difficult client. Oh man. Good for you though.
Yeah. The takeaway, it's funny. So then I did do an Instagram story. I know I do a lot of Instagram stories. So I try to keep them upbeat, but be transparent. So I kind of have a hard time drawing the line because I never want someone to look and be like envious, but I don't want to be Debbie Downer. Right. So I try to keep it upbeat, but this happened and I was like, I'm just going to share it. So it said like how I fired a client, and you know what? You're allowed to fire a client. And if you're really good. And the biggest thing was I should have done it months before. So many designers reached out. And clients are like, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. And the designer's like, wow, like, how did that happen? Like, I really I only talked about it once. It was like literally 4 frames of a story. And people were really interested and surprised, which was interesting. So they ended up knowing that I had also blocked them from watching me because I was like, you know what?
What about those clients? Did they follow you on Instagram?
They did. And I blocked them when I fired them. I was like, no, you know what? You don't get to follow me. And I'm public. So you could open up another account if you really wanted to, but but one of the relatives saw it and recorded it and sent it to them. And then they sent me an email asking.
Oh my God.
And I actually denied it because he's a lawyer. And I was like, a big time lawyer. And even though I didn't use their names, and I would never, I also would never, for anyone who knows them, I would never say who it was. I would never talk bad about someone's name. But to me, I'm like, I'm just talking about things in general that I'm allowed to do that. But it did scare me when they saw the video, they had it recorded and they asked. So I denied it because I was like, I just said it wasn't you, but they know it was them, and it was them. So
yeah, you were just like, there's another client. I fired another at the exact same time. Holy shoot. Oh, girl, I'm so in awe. And you know what? The reason so many designers messaged you about that is because so many of us have been in that situation.
For
but
sure.
have not had the balls, to be quite frank, to pull the plug. Because so many reasons, there's so many reasons this happened,
Sure.
like fear of failure, the fear of what are people going to think of me? I don't want to hurt someone else's feelings.
Yeah.
I want everyone to like me.
Yeah.
I won't get to finish the project and photograph it. Like there's so many excuses we give ourselves to keep ourselves in a bad situation when really we need to be paying attention to what is affecting our mental ability to do our job and live our life. And sometimes, unfortunately, some clients and some projects and maybe even some trades, we've all been in those situations where they drag us down, and we have to be strong like Karin Bennett and say, no, I'm not going to take this anymore.
Yeah. My only takeaway from that and my advice to people listening is to do it sooner. Like right when you think this is not going to be good, just let it go. It's never going to be worth it. The amount of money you're going to make is not worth it. A lot of times it's not that much money because that's part of the problem is, whatever, but just walk away sooner.
Yeah. I'd say that that's something that I'm learning in life is when you start to get the inclination of I think I should do this thing, or I'm really not feeling good about that situation.
Yeah.
That's when you need to act. Yeah. But we have this, I interviewed someone else for the podcast. I can't remember her name right now. And she is like a life coach. And she said, there's this thing called the terror barrier. And I was like, ooh, that's catchy. I like that. So it often holds people back from acting and making a decision on something that they want to, whether it's something that they desire for their life or it's a situation that's not working for them, because it's this barrier of fear of whatever, maybe the things I listed before. It could be a fear of you're stepping out of your comfort zone or whatever it is. And it's so, I heard it and I'm like, that is so applicable for designers, right?
Yes. Yeah. Cause we're pleasers. Our job is giving people a beautiful home. We're literally pleasers, but as a business person, you can't be a pleaser. You're running a business. So it's just a totally different hat. And it's so hard to be able to do both.
Totally. Okay. I know we're running out of time. So there's a couple things I still want to ask you. One, what does your organizational structure look like? You mentioned you have an administrative coordinator. What does that look like? Does she manage all of your invoicing and purchase orders and deliveries and that type of thing? And then what do the others do?
Yeah. So I have 3 designers and an admin coordinator. So my admin coordinator, like I said, is going to start doing the quoting. That she's just taking that off my plate. So I'm really happy about that. And then she does, oh my gosh, every single thing. She does all the back work. So whether it's updating my website or Pinterest, I do my Instagram, I do all that kind of social media stuff. But just all the back end stuff, business cards and this and that. She's frontline for everything. So Lisa is who you will talk to when you email or call us. It's Lisa always. It's not me. So she does all that stuff. So that's awesome. So that's what Lisa does. Then my 3 designers, one of them does our purchase orders. So I find it easier when a designer is doing the purchase orders because there's so many details, because we do a lot of custom furnishings. There's so many details that you kind of have to be in the design to know it. So she does all of our orders, manages all our orders. During COVID, it's probably used to be 30% of her job. And I'd say it's almost 60% of her full-time job, if you can even believe that. And then she does designs. She's amazing at reveals and styling and decorating and putting things together in presentations. And then I have Amanda and Sarah who do more floor plans, kitchen designs, all that sort of stuff, measures, plumbing walkthroughs, electrical walkthroughs, site stuff, whatever. And then I do managing KBD. And then I do the primary selections for everything. So for any design, I start doing all the designs, selecting all the stuff. So I'll have a furniture plan, like a floor plan from Amanda or Sarah. They do all our CAD stuff. And then I'll know my measurements. So I'll start putting everything together. And then as a team, we work all together to put the presentation together. So, and again, kind of what you said about being offended, with a client not liking something, I would never, good advice, never ever be offended. If they don't like 50% of your thing then maybe, but like if they just don't like something, it's all subjective. So it doesn't matter at all. And then same with when the four of us get together and put a design together before the presentation, someone will be like, honestly, I don't like this ottoman or this or that. And like, we change things all the time. No one gets offended. Like, we just kind of work together and then it kind of comes together. And then after that, I have, depending on who it is, if it's order problems or order questions, it's Elisa. And if it's like plumbing issues or this or that, it's Amanda. So like everyone has different roles. So I've also taken myself out of the after presentation, that whole phase I'm out of, which I really, really like.
Yes.
And then I come back in the end.
Yes, me too.
I know what's happening. They tell me everything, something happens. I know what's happening, but I don't.
You're
I'm
not
the person
going to say troubleshooting the drapes, troubleshooting or even just meeting to oversee, like, what's the progress, what's happening.
Yeah. Meeting the trades, all that stuff, like a plumbing fixture doesn't show up. And then, it's this 8-week delay. And like, I just don't deal with any of that. I know everything that's happening, but I don't do that. So everyone kind of has a role and it's working really well. The time when we really come together is like right before that presentation, and everyone kind of does, because everyone's good at different things and we kind of nuance it together. And yeah, it's going pretty good.
I love that. I love that every designer I talk to has a different, that's why I always ask this question. Like, I'm always fascinated how someone's organizational structure is, because they're always very different. Surprisingly. Yes. I mean, you'd think like, hey, what is for the longest time, I was like, what's the formula? Like, what's the organized, what is everyone doing? And like, everyone is doing it differently, which can be frustrating, I think, but it's helpful to hear how others are doing it. And then for anyone who's listening right now, they can say, oh, I like that amount of collaboration, or that doesn't work for me because of whoever's on my team or what have you.
I would love to hear what other people do, because I'm always open to change. Like, I'm always open to redirection and how things are, because like, you only know what you know, right? So this is actually working well for us, but I'm super open to like things changing, because I think it's so interesting. And I certainly don't think I have like the perfect formula. So I love hearing from other designers what they do.
Yeah, totally. And do you work from your house, or do you guys have a separate studio?
Yeah. So we have an office. We're located in Burlington. So we did work out of our house forever. And so now we're in a office building, and we actually share like mutual space with another designer, which some people think is crazy because you're competing. But it's amazing, and I'm all about collaboration, and I think it's so great. And we've had clients reach out, or people like homeowners reach out to her and to me, and like, I'll tag her. Like, if we're doing something together, I'll tag her. People know we work together. At the end of the day, they could watch my stuff and be like, oh, I'm going to follow Nikki from NFG, and Nikki's amazing. Yeah, but you know what? It is what it is. And if people are like, oh my gosh, I like Nikki's designs better than Karin, perfect, then go for it. Like, it's all good. Like,
who do you gel with? Like, you both have different personalities. Like, we're all such unique individuals in the way we approach design. It's completely about, like, I'm right now at the Collective Workspace, which is all about that. It's like what you have on a larger scale, right? There's like a multitude of designers working, sharing the space. Their clients come in for presentations. I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
Me too. Awesome. I love, especially women, but I love when people work together and don't compete. And, I just think I think it's really important. And again, our business is subjective. So what you do, like, your designs are amazing, and Nikki's designs are amazing. And you know what I mean? But it's just who you jive with, and, whose designs speak to you on a personal level. And that's it.
Okay, so our time is up. I wanted to talk about being a parent. We didn't have time, but you know what? We can have you back, and you can talk about parenting and running a business, because that's like a whole other like big topic.
For sure.
Before we sign off, do you have any last nugget of wisdom for my listeners?
Oh, I think that at least the takeaway from today is like, go with your gut and have good process, because you're only about your process. And like I said, I would 100% be purchasing help from whether it's like getting someone's letter of agreement or having their process or doing whatever. Like, I think those are invaluable investments, for sure. And don't undervalue yourself. Like, even if you're starting, you said this, and I'll just like repeat that even if you're starting out, you're still allowed to charge a certain amount, and people still aren't allowed to walk all over you, and you're still allowed to have your process, and it's your process. So stick by it. Like, even if it's your first year.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Just talk to other designers. That's how you start to understand what other people are charging, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've had this community of designers, my designer friends and gals, and now my community's expanded like to like the 10th degree. Now, like, I'm able to talk, like, have these conversations like, oh, so-and-so is charging that. And so-and-so, well, I feel like I'm a little bit, here in relation to them and their experience. So maybe I should be charging. Like, I see it all the time with designers in our like the Facebook group where they're chit chatting. They're like, well, how much do you charge? And someone's like, that's too little. You should charge more. And there's so much of this collaboration and like trying to bring each other up. And by sharing, I think it helps to give designers the backup that they have that value, even if you're just starting out.
Yeah. Even if you don't think you should be that, go for it. Go for it. Cause you deserve that. Like, don't think you have to charge the most minimal amount because you're starting out. Like, you don't.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You can take the small jobs, take the smaller jobs, but still charge appropriately.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, girl. Can you let everybody know where they can find you if they want to go follow you on wherever you like them to follow you?
Sure. I'm Karin Bennett Designs for everything. So whether it's Twitter, Instagram, website, whatever. I was lucky enough to get in early. So anything, just Karin Bennett Designs, one word, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me today for the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Whew, wasn't that so good? Karin, thank you so much for sharing so candidly. I guess just everything that you're going through and how you've really structured your team. I think it's really special to see that you guys collaborate so beautifully together. I also thought, like, for me, a big takeaway was that you're not doing those onboarding calls, those discovery calls. And that's something that I've thought about for a while, but haven't yet pulled kind of the trigger, I guess, on that. So I think it's something I want to explore for sure. The more we can delegate to free up our own time to focus on, like Karin says, the things that we love and to do and are good at makes so much sense. I mean, ultimately, probably if you're a creative entrepreneur like me, you got into business because you want to create, or there's a certain area of it that you would, if you could all day long focus on one thing in your business, what would it be? And then look at, are you doing that? If not, maybe there's an opportunity for you to hire some people to help you so that you can be freed up to do what's really your skill set. Anyway, I think it was a really great conversation. I mean, I'm hopefully going to have a little bit more gumption in the future if I do need to let a client go. That's going to be a hard one. But anyhow, thanks again for Karin's very honest conversation. If you guys like this episode, please head on over to Instagram, give me a DM, let me know. Obviously, we'd love for you to join our Facebook group. It's called Designer Meetups. It's where we can all talk about the episodes, but we can also just share resources as designers and really support each other. So we'll share the link to that in the show notes. I'll see you guys soon.